Okay, so we are back, and we are joined by our Finance Committee, including the newest member of the Finance Committee, Dave Kier. Just want to say congratulations. What a great choice. I'm looking forward to having you as part of the team. And so we're going to talk about, Phil, I'll turn it over to you because we're going to talk about the water and sewer debt and revenues and how that may impact rates, right?
Correct. So as you know, we work with DEC about creating the water and sewer rates. So you have the handout in front of you. And most of it, the rate increases would be to cover debt.
Would be what?
To cover the debt.
This is a little bit of a confusing form.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which debt, the 12 million or all the other debt?
All the other debt. I don't think the 12 million is on the books yet.
But it will be.
It will be.
I mean, is it maybe I'm wrong, but it's my understanding is that's when the problem starts, is when the 12 million is on the books. It's not necessarily a problem right this second.
It's a problem.
But the 12 million was an override. That doesn't go just on the water sewer rates, right?
Well, I guess the decision was never made of what the split was going to be.
The vote, it was a debt exclusion that passed.
Right.
But that doesn't mean anything. Debt exclusions can go either way.
What do you mean they can go either? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, part of the project though is not on a debt exclusion.
Part of the project is, no.
How is it not?
I thought there was
There were two different.
there's two
loans.
different things.
There was a supplemental
There was
loan.
the project
on
is
top of
more
the 12
expensive.
million.
Oh, the 1.4 you're talking about.
Right, and that's not on a debt exclusion.
1.4 is regular, right?
Yeah,
That's not debt exclusion.
We didn't vote a debt exclusion, so the Division of Local Services acted on that. We filed a waiver. So they felt that the initial or the original authorization, the 1.4, didn't require us to hold a special town election or
So
hold
it
a special
still is a
election or
debt
vote.
exclusion.
It still would be part of
Yeah.
the debt exclusion.
Well, that's news to me.
That was discussed at the meeting we had about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, whatever, okay. I did not realize that. I assumed the one.
but regardless, you
doesn't
can
matter.
put it on it can go on the rate. I mean, just because it's a debt exclusion doesn't mean it has to be paid through taxation, correct?
Right, so then will we have to amend that article and re-vote it? So what you're saying is the users would pay for it?
Well,
Well,
We're talking about the
Are we getting
wastewater,
a
are we
little-
talking about the wastewater plant project?
yes.
Okay,
We haven't talked, I mean, we have long discussed some level of a split.
right,
No
we did,
decision has ever been made about that, apparently.
correct. We
So,
discussed that, yeah.
We've
That's right.
discussed it several times, 60, 40, 50, whatever. We've gone back and forth around different things, but we've never actually done anything.
That's right.
but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, right? Because that's not hitting yet. So what we're talking about is,
What we're talking about is what is in FY '25
It's
to date, because no rates were raised in '25.
okay, so
Yeah.
bottom line it, Phil.
All these things.
Bottom line.
Yeah, like,
Let me read it back.
hmm?
So as you can see by this sheet,
Which sheet?
I don't think we have that sheet.
We don't have that sheet.
I don't think I saw that sheet either.
All we have is spreadsheets.
Yeah, we just have what Dave Prickett put together.
okay, so you don't have the summary
Correct.
sheets
When did you get that?
today.
Should I make copies? I haven't seen that.
Well, is it any different than what's on the,
Well, I think this is easier to look at.
that box right there? That base number?
So, but this 350 on here is just a sum total of the debt. It's not that's carried on water sewer. Is that correct?
Yes.
but it doesn't tell us in what we're projected, where are we projected to be at the end of the year 25 on water sewer? You know what I mean? Am I asking the right question?
Yes, you are.
Okay,
It's on the summary. Let her get the summary and we'll go through it.
okay.
It's right here too.
Is it on the second page?
I did have a hard time with this form.
Well, everything's
Was it
in
me- was it
parentheses.
me? Well, that's.
Like,
never
yeah, I
good
didn't
enough.
understand, like, is this all negative? There
Yes.
must,
I guess I mean, we look at these kinds of
Yes.
forms all the time, but this one just kind of boggled my mind.
yeah.
So there was an interest payment made this year for that project.
Correct.
Yeah,
That makes me
Okay,
feel better.
it's on a
Ed.
short-term
Thank
note.
you.
It's just,
Interest only.
For
Yes.
66,667.
Okay, that's it.
I just like the bottom line.
That's what I
But that's-
just tried getting to.
Right.
We'll get to it.
That's a small part of the eventual project. 'Cause
Yes.
that's interest only,
Yeah.
and it's not all the money either.
I mean, the last time we raised the rate was based on the recommendation to bring the rates up to where we could get the grant. And we increased the rates to make sure that we could prove to USDA that we could repay the loan by raising the rates. So what I'm trying to figure out is what's coming in, what's going out, and what are our shortfalls if we need to raise the rates, basically.
Well, so we should correct that though, because it's not simply convincing USDA that you can repay the loan. It's even to qualify for the loan,
There's a form.
your sewer water rates have to be a certain percentage of income. So we didn't even qualify to apply for the loan because the rates were too low.
There's been a lag over the years, not we, not this board particularly, but of raising rates.
So, yeah, I mean, and I would say, and I know the finance committee, we've pushed this, I mean, automatically, every single year, there should be at least a 2.5% increase. Our tax rate goes up 2.5% every year. Our water and sewer rates should go up 2.5%, bare minimum every year. It should be almost an automatic.
And we used to,
Okay.
So if it's been 2 years since we've done this, then we're,
already behind.
So I agree with you, but most of the debt was taken on by taxation
In the past, yes.
in the past.
I understand.
So once the retained earnings started to build up, we started paying some of that debt out of the retained earnings. So this chart is showing you that what the debt is, and then what you need to raise the rates to cover the debt, all in, with no contribution from taxation.
Okay, and so, and is it the debt all in, including the 12 million, which is gonna hit next year?
No. So if you look at this sheet there,
Yeah, I'm
let's
looking,
just take this one, this table one, the wastewater budget.
Yeah.
With the spreadsheet. So the debt in the second half of this of 25, the second half, the second bill, the debt you have to pay, if you're gonna pay it all out of the enterprise fund, retained earnings, is $259,000.
Where are we looking?
I don't think we have that either.
we have debt service,
Yeah.
349, almost 350,000.
For what side?
That's both of them.
Right,
That's everything. That's both water and sewer.
Do we have that?
you should.
Yeah, that's the grade.
It says table 1 and table 2 at the top.
That's all the debt for both water and sewer.
So if you add them both for the second half bill that's going out, because we just put the first half of 25 bills out,
Yeah,
right? The first commitment was
Yeah.
already
Already done.
put out. So to cover the debt for the second half of the bills, The debt you have to cover is 336, 361, and 259, 502.
Here's the 259.
I see the 259. Where's the 3?
It's on the wastewater.
I don't.
The wastewater is 259, 502. And then the water is 336, 361.
Oh, okay, I see it.
Water, budget.
Where's at the bottom?
So,
And it gives you a list of all that is on the debt, with all the projects on the bottom.
Yeah, so just, those are all here too, I think. You're talking about the sewer improvement project, you're talking about the rotating biological contactor, gravity thickener.
But that adds up to 252, and you're saying it's 352, and you're saying it's 259.
I don't even see the rotating biological.
The other one, the 336 is water.
Mine's all water.
So you take the transmission
You know
principal.
what I mean?
what page are you on? Yeah.
3 of 17.
Oh, you're missing one or two, that's why. Yep. Here.
Let's try this one. Oh,
We lost
that's a
page,
little
we
better.
lost page 1 and 2 somehow. Yeah.
Okay, but I don't understand what you're saying. So I see the pink boxes on each of these, but they don't,
So,
which is what you're talking about, the rotating biological
Yeah.
compactor, isn't it? Or
Compactor.
contact.
Contact.
So but if the debt service is 259,502, in that box, it's 352 is the debt. So what's the difference?
the debt service, I don't know where
That's just sewer is it looks like it's just sewer is 259, 502.
because then there's a whole series of water.
That's
things.
just sewer.
But, right, which is the next page, and those add up to 349.
349.
And then, but the debt
852.
service is 336. What, am I not looking at this right?
Yeah,
Bill?
the first page, the sewer is 352, 360.
Right.
Yeah.
But then,
Page 1,
Yep.
Yeah, 349 and 352, so you got a total of 700.
okay, but then he was just calling our attention to this red line, capital debt service, 259,502.
Where's that line? Because some have already been made.
Okay, so,
That's the second bill that is going out. So that's the winter months, the billing through the winter months. Because we did not increase the rates for 25 to start with.
correct.
that's, the capital debt service is the bills that are going out?
No.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about. This red line right here, it says capital debt service, 259,502
That's what you owe on all these projects.
on the 352.
That's what you owe for the second half. The second half billing has to cover the 259,502.
So when we put a budget together,
Right.
we put it together assuming that we were going to pay, that we had the money to pay all this.
What's not being done is putting together an expense budget, but you need to have a revenue budget as well. And that's how you plan your budget for the next fiscal year.
So we didn't have a revenue budget?
We did not.
I mean, regardless.
We looked at revenues. We looked at what we have received in revenues, but we need to physically have a revenue budget.
I guess regardless of whatever happens, in term, all the debt, we've been talking about a split in the debt. So whether the debt is for the new improved sewer plant or whether the debt is for prior upgrades to the sewer plant, what difference does it really make?
Doesn't matter.
It's all debt incurred by the sewers or the water system. So the USDA loan we have for the water filtration project is debt that was incurred for the water project. So it's all got to be paid. And I guess So however we split it up, it doesn't matter where it came from originally, because it all came from water and sewer. So if you're talking about a
Where
split,
it being debt.
the debt,
Yeah.
right, it's all water and sewer projects.
So water and sewer revenues need to cover the water and sewer debt.
Yes, except well,
They do, and that's kind of the fallacy, like, we call this an enterprise fund, but it's not an enterprise fund.
right, so it can today, if you do this.
Right.
If you raise rates to do this, it will in fact then cover the debt.
Right.
But when the $12 million project hits next year or the year after, probably next year.
Well, there was a payment on it, I was looking.
Yeah, but that's just the interest on it,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's not even the whole project, and it's not.
When is the project gonna be done?
That's it.
And we raise the rates to cover the payments on that, not to,
Well, right,
Right.
you're not.
Not like we're not gonna
by
raise it
$12
$12 million,
No,
right?
no.
I just, for
No,
people listening at
no.
home, I don't want them freaking
No.
out.
No,
But,
yeah, it's a 40-year
It's a 40-year loan.
loan.
but regardless, you're gonna have to raise the rates.
Right, of course.
To cover
The debt service.
something at some point.
The debt service to that $12 million or whatever the interest rate is that they gave us for the next 40 years.
Right,
That's right.
Right.
And so,
And so right now, we're not bringing in enough money to cover, probably enough money to cover that starting next year, or the year after.
no, you're never.
no, right now, we're not even bringing in enough
Correct.
money to cover what we need to cover in this fiscal year, correct?
Right.
So Phil,
So because it's on a debt exclusion,
mhm,
you could just do this, cover whatever this is, and include it in whatever you think the split should be. So does this cover the user's portion of the split? Does it not? I mean, you can figure that out. We can do the math on it and figure out what percentage of the overall debt we're talking about.
but we have to talk about it in this moment in time, and that future debt hasn't hit yet.
Right, but it's going to. I mean, it's going to happen next year.
If you're gonna talk about rates, you might as well talk about it all together.
Right,
Right, because, and that future debt is on a debt exclusion, so it's easier for the town to pick up that future debt because of the mechanism that is being used. This debt is not on a debt exclusion. So if you bring it back to the town side, you have to cut the budget to fit it in.
Yeah.
And debt exclusion, you just add to the tax bill.
Correct.
And bring it in, temporary addition to the tax bill.
Correct.
Until it's paid off.
Well, right, and in this case.
But we already set the tax rate for this year.
So that's
Right,
why.
but you don't know that until next year. You won't start having to pay it until next year.
right.
Or maybe the year after.
I thought we weren't gonna make it through this year with,
This is for 25.
No, yeah,
this is for 25.
But, and
We're-
it's not included, right, we're having two different
you
conversations.
make this by paying.
So there's the future debt,
You
which
raise
we
rates.
don't
That's how
have
you
yet.
raise.
There's the,
This is all old existing debt.
yeah, so we are talking about two different things. We're talking about how we're gonna handle when the future sewer project plant upgrade hits. But we also have to talk about how we're gonna cover this right now.
I mean, the only way to cover this is, there's no way to cover this other than raise rates.
Right.
Or cut the budget in half,
Right.
like now.
So do we have to increase both
And
water?
the only reason I'm saying that is the only reason debt came into the water sewer retained earnings was to balance the general fund budget. So what projects were paid out of the general funds? There had to be something. You didn't take all this debt and take it out of retained earnings the first part of
No, but
25.
well, it's not the only reason. The other reason is because it's all water and sewer debt.
It is. And it's all projects. I mean, we're paying out of the water and sewer retained earnings, we're paying the water filtration plant that's how old? That was always taken out of tax. There wasn't even an enterprise fund when they built it.
It was not, we went back and forth. We didn't always, some years we took it out of water sewer, some years we paid for it out of taxation. depended
We
where.
always treated it,
So there was no rate increase in the first half of 25's bill. The big bill, that's the summer bill. There was no rate increase.
right?
And
Well,
you took in
that's-
like 780,000.
That's because, you know, either you guys didn't know, but nobody knew about it, right? It doesn't matter.
I mean, there was no rate increase, so now you have to do it in the second half, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
The bills have already gone out, they've already been paid in some cases.
They would do November 1st.
Yeah.
So are you talking about increasing both water and sewer? And then what are you talking about increasing it to?
Both
have-
minus
See, it
two.
says projected FY 2025 change to be second half bill only
Yeah,
to pay the debt is 48.5%
yeah, you have to.
Increase.
increase. And it's 45% in the water, if you're gonna absorb all the debt.
Right.
So almost a 50% increase?
Yep.
Which would have been a lot less had you done it sooner.
So how many users do you lose when you go up 50%? For those of us that say,
There's a chance, yeah, that could happen.
yeah.
But what's your alternative?
Like I'll put my
Meaning-
personal hat on, like, we pay a pretty significant water bill as it is now, and if it goes up 50%, we're getting in a place where we might as well start thinking about drilling a well, because we can't afford these rates. And I don't know how other businesses feel about it, but that's how I feel about it. And I don't want to dig a well. We've got some of the best we have the best water in town, in the area.
You do.
Okay, just bear with me. I am hearing a couple different things, so I just want to reflect here. First, we have operation of our water treatment plant and our sewage treatment plant, and making sure we meet the bills for that. Then we have coming online is the sewage treatment plant upgrades. So are you guys, when you're saying 50%, are you combining everything together, or are you keeping it separate?
Well, that depends. This is why it's hard to have these two conversations separately, because that depends on what's the split, which is a decision we still have not made. So if the split turns out to be 100% on taxation next year, when the $12 million project comes online, then I guess you don't have to raise rates at all again next year. You know, because it'll never hit the rates. But that's a totally under the Board of Selectmen's control, you know, so like, we just have to decide what it's gonna be. And that's why I'm saying, right now, your only real choice to pay this particular piece of debt is to raise rates.
Yeah,
Now.
unless you want to have a town meeting and
Right.
cut somebody
Cut
else's
somebody's
budget.
So the only other, but then next year, you can figure that into the split. So whatever the split is for the new project, which is gonna be a significant expense, I mean,
But I mean, so town as a whole approved the override for the plant upgrades.
yeah,
So you could argue that the townspeople approved, and so it wouldn't, you could not have it hit the rates, particularly if the rates had to go up this much. Because what choice do we have?
well, you could argue that, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think a reasonable way to look at it would be to say, let's take all the debt that's part of the water and sewer system, whether it's new, whether it's old, whatever. Figure out what it all is, and then figure out what the split is gonna be.
Right.
You know, and maybe this year, the rates have to encompass a little more of the split because we don't have the other thing online yet, but next year, that will all come out in the wash because it's gonna come online and it's gonna have to be paid somehow. And presumably, mostly out of tax. I guess what I'm saying is by next year, this problem will be entirely different. because you will have a debt exclusion online. So you'll have an entirely different sort of decision to make, which is how much do you put here and how much do you put there?
During the FY 26 budget process.
Right, that's right.
You'll figure that out.
That's right.
Yeah.
But today, the answer is you have to raise rates to get to next year to figure that out. Rates that are probably going to go up next year anyway. Or not now, because they're going up this year. You know.
Phil, when they budgeted, or Dave Prickett went through, or however that worked and budgeted this, if we raise the rates that much, that'll cover the debt, but what does that leave you? Does that leave you with anything in water retained earnings? Because I know the last few years, there's not been much in water or sewer retained.
There's been money in the water.
Right,
Sure,
there
and
has
we paid the debt.
Yeah, and we haven't spent all of it either.
Like last
So
year.
it'll just close out at the end of the
So
fiscal
last
year and get
there was
recertified.
$400,000 in water and sewer.
How much?
Well, I thought it was about 400,000.
Yeah, it
And we
was,
paid debt with it.
Yeah.
You took it out in retained earnings, you paid debt, that taxation used to pay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so what I'm just trying to get at is, is there any way that instead of a 50% increase in rates, that you can do a 25% increase in, I don't know, I'm spitballing.
This is a increase that is
Yeah.
hard
So the
to,
current fiscal year, we used $134,397 in water and sewer retained earnings. So I knew we had not spent it all.
so,
That's, just a portion.
So if you let 25%, some of that retained earnings could be used to make up the other part of money we need to pay the debt for the second half of FY 25.
Right, you have to vote that, but the intent, of course, is to build your retained earnings for
Right.
emergency purposes.
Yeah, I totally get that, but, I assume, and we're not making this decision, they get to make this decision. We have to balance the needs between,
But the question then just becomes, are you just putting it off till next year? What are you gonna do next year?
Right,
right.
yeah, and that's a
It's a
good.
maybe.
Right. I mean, next year, you're gonna have to raise rates again.
Right.
Because,
But is it easier to do two smaller ones versus one big one? That's the other.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
yeah, it's a good question. It may be, I mean, yes, it's definitely much easier if nothing happens. If anything happens, it'll be much worse, because then you won't have any money to deal with it. You have to go to a special town meeting and fix the, like,
Yeah,
if perchance, like the repaving of Route 5 somehow impacts the 200-year-old water line you have out there that's broken 17 times, you're not gonna have money to fix it.
Yeah,
I mean, last time we had to break out, we had to go to a special town meeting for the money, but it was $100,000 to
Right.
repair the water main.
I remember that, right.
So Phil, I mean, that's a big, so I'm assuming, do you have, I mean, people who are watching this are going to want to know how it affects them directly, right? So I mean, do you have numbers of like an average household water bill is,
says it right.
where am I?
This handout that you just received,
The third line.
Yeah, so it's $95.
You got this one, Diana?
yeah,
Yeah, it says average monthly cost per,
per EDU.
Where the, why am I not, okay. Monthly cost,
right.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I did not
Top one
see
is
that
sewer,
line.
the bottom one is water.
So it's if you increase what is proposed here, it's $160 a month for water and sewer increase.
Right, for water, it's,
That's a lot.
for water, it's a couple $100 a year. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
200 and something.
And that's not, because not everybody's on sewer.
Oh, wait a minute, you're saying monthly, this is monthly, this is, I thought, it says half bill. So the average monthly cost,
So there's 780 people are gonna get both increases to about $160, and 1,300 and 80 people will be getting the water.
And that's the 160 per month.
Correct.
So we get our water bills twice a year.
Right, so 6 times 150, 160 times 6.
That is steep
It's
for
almost
people.
$1,000.
Yeah.
So $2,000 a
Yeah,
year,
when you look at it that way.
if you
yeah.
have both.
That is
Yeah.
way steep.
2,000, you're saying, if you have both?
Wow.
That's
And
a
it has
lot.
nothing, I just want to be clear that it has nothing to do with the operations, the daily operations of the plant. This is all debt. This is all projects that was approved by the town.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, nothing to do with it other than it supplies the entire physical plant that runs all the things. I mean, without the debt, there is nothing to run on a daily basis. There's no plant. You just have septic systems. And wells, because there's no water filtration, there's no sewage plant.
That is a
It's huge.
steep
Yeah, it
increase.
is.
And, you know, we had conversations over the last couple of years of other steep increases so that we could even this out.
Well,
And
you know, it speaks to why, it speaks to, I think, not setting the water and sewer rates November 1st. I mean, we should be saying the water and sewer rate, once you go to town meeting, first week of May, or whatever, second week of May, whatever it is, you have a budget. You know what it's gonna cost to run the water and sewer.
Shouldn't you really be setting the rates prior to July 1?
I think you should be saying the rates 2 weeks after town meeting, when you have the budget, you know how much. it's
well,
gonna
that was
cost.
my other question, like, so this is also,
Behind.
Right.
this is extra high because we're behind.
Yes.
Yes.
So
That's-
next year it would level out a little bit
Yes.
because we'd be assessing
Yeah.
it over the full, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
if you did it over both bills, it would be half as much.
We
It also
need to be
depends if you
looking,
go the whole amount.
yeah, we need to be
here versus
looking at
part of the
how we
amount, because then you're
budget
still gonna
and
have
implement
that other
rates.
half of that amount next year.
Yeah, and I actually think that's would be the next step for you guys before you make a decision, is you gotta make a decision. You know, as Sean said, combine the old debt, the proposed new debt, put it all together, figure out where the rates need to be, and then figure out how much is gonna come out of, you know, the town side. And,
Yeah, I don't feel we can make a decision tonight.
no,
Well, we gotta, I mean,
Huh?
we gotta have I mean, on rates, you mean, or on,
Yeah,
no, I mean, you have to have a hearing, right?
yeah, we're gonna have a public
Yeah.
hearing. There is no plan.
but
to
even
do that.
before the hearing, don't you wanna get some of those questions answered before you decide what you wanna do? Because there's no doubt we have to pay the bill, but let's.
Do you have a sense, Bill, of what the, increase will be next year when you have borrowed all the money? Do we know what that looks, but not the increase, I'm sorry. the
Because,
payment.
well, the big question with DPC was, we need a revenue. We need to know what the revenues were to set the rate.
No, I don't mean the rate, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I mean, what the bill is. It doesn't matter what it would do to the rates, because we don't even know if any of it's gonna go on the rates yet, you know, like, so what is the payment the town has to make to fund that $12 million plus interest?
Right.
The
That's
payment on that.
right, that's what we need to know. Every year for the next 40 years, what is the check that we have to write for that? And then we can at least compare it to this and see, you know, how close they are.
So I think next year, when the budget season starts, which we've started already, but to get that answer,
Yeah.
right? To say, okay, here's the whole debt, what's it gonna cost us per year? And then decide what to break.
Right, and maybe it turns out that rates only go up 2.5% or something next year because you wind up taking the whole thing on the town side because the rate's already paid for this part, you know?
It's just.
I don't know, but
What are we doing in the meantime is the question, I guess, between the second billing cycle and 25.
in the meantime, you have to figure out some split between raising the rates and using retained earnings. And whether it should be all rates or all,
Yeah.
And when do the bills typically go up in the second half?
They just went out.
The first half just got paid.
Right, April's the next reading.
So
For the billing.
April, the next bills will go
Bill,
up.
April is the next billing.
Right.
Second commitment.
So you've got some time to set the rates, but you probably want people probably want to know, because if it's going to go up significantly, they should be prepared to be able to
You know,
put money aside to pay their water.
I'd like to really discuss some ways that we can mitigate that huge jump. It's really huge for people to have to do that, particularly the ones that have both bills. That's a lot of money.
but I think,
We got to make sure we look at all the options available.
I just want to say that part of the reason we're sitting here tonight in this predicament, looking at a 45% increase, is because we spent inordinate amount of time exploring all the options instead of deciding what we should do.
Right.
Like, we didn't decide on a split. We didn't set a rate, because
Right.
I don't know why, it doesn't matter why. But every time we delay, it's like if you find out we have to cut the budget during the year, and then we wait until the last quarter of the fiscal year to do it.
Right.
Well, by then you have to decimate the thing, because
But when have we typically set rates?
What time of the year? Isn't it usually around this time of year?
Well, we set them 2 years prior last time. We set it for 2 years, the rates.
Right, the intent is to get a full year, and we haven't,
For us to set it, we
Kick the can down the road. It didn't come before us. to set these
Yeah, the
rates.
last couple of years,
the rate increases went into effect. Yeah, we missed the first billing, and it was only the second commitment that picked up the new rate.
yeah, you just need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Correct.
It creates a problem.
Well, yes,
It
this is a
does.
problem.
Right, because otherwise you'd be talking about,
Because you're always
25%
lagging.
increase.
Because actually what you'll be doing now for setting it for April is, then you're making it for the whole next year.
Right,
So you'll, if you start the precedent of setting it next March or whenever you do it, and you do that every year,
Mhm.
And you get ahead of it.
yes.
I hope, yeah, in theory.
Yeah, so almost have to set the rates a year prior.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
would be talking about it a year prior to the
And it
year you
goes back
implement
to,
it.
what do we need to do? Revenue balancing?
You have to have a revenue budget and an expense.
And that's probably something that,
And that's
Yeah.
usually done in February.
But we,
Although your expense budgets are done sooner, but
We
you
don't-
should have a
who
revenue
does,
budget
who
by
does that? Do
February.
you do that? Does Phil do that? Does the
Typically, it's the
accountant?
DPW that would do that,
but
with
we,
the accountant.
we do have we don't do a budget, but we do have
Town administrator can
revenue
too.
figures, like when we put.
I mean, when we did the thing last spring, we had an idea what the revenue was going to be.
It should be a team effort. It really should be the accountant, the DPW director, and the
Right.
town administrator.
Yeah, so the revenue was 1.4 million last year.
Between,
The operating budget was 1.1.
between the two.
Yeah, and so that's where you got the $300-some-thousand from.
Retained earnings.
Yeah,
So
retained
you took some of that and paid the debt, and you
Yeah.
obviously have some left.
We'll be interested
I
to hear.
would just think that, the only question, I would think you might want to try to find out as soon as possible what that number is. Because, the number of the check that the town is going to have to write for this $12 million project, because
And when, exactly.
when's hard, because when is the bond going to be issued? I mean, it's going to happen in the next 2 years. It just depends on when you get off the ban and onto the regular bond, right? So like,
Doesn't make any sense to wait.
No,
You'll kind of know what it is.
You know what it's going to be
Yeah.
in the future, because it's 40-year fixed rate, right? Like, so you, eventually, there's gonna be a number, you're gonna know, and that's gonna continue for the next 39
That's
years.
12 plus the one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Four, so
The only thing you
13
won't,
something.
Yes.
the only thing you won't really know is the interest, is the interest rate.
It's fixed.
It's already
It's
set,
already set.
Yeah.
and it should be, all we need is a calculator, we can figure it out.
Right, that's what I'm saying, like, you should
Yeah.
figure that number out, because what you may wind up doing is saying, well, we're gonna use retained earnings to offset the amount of the increase, and we're gonna have no money in the bank in case anything happens. But then next year, when we have to bring the other money online, we just have to increase rates that much anyway. So we bought 6 months.
Right.
And is that worth it? I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I'm saying we have to kind of think, is that worth it to spend all the money we have to reduce the increase? It may be, but I think we would want to know that, like, what does that actually mean?
So why don't we have DPC come in? Meet before we have a public hearing. Why don't we do
You could
that?
do
I
that.
think they can give you the number pretty quick.
So look at those options, because there's options.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must know what the number is, almost off the top of his
I mean,
head.
we know that these rates are going to go
Go up, but if there's a way we can not have this, but, make it
Gradual.
because this is a lot for
Is it,
residents.
is it worth running this by the accountant and looking at where we are in this year's, I'm not saying taking money away, but oftentimes there's money that gets turned back at the end of the year. If we have a little idea of some departments that may be running, just saying, I mean, you might be, if you could do that, then at town meeting, you could transfer some money into the debt portion and relieve some of the impact on the rate. It would take some digging, right? But it might be worth it.
Absolutely, we can do that.
We have to balance sort of what's fair with users and non-users too.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So you don't want to hit, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but this kind of hit to users is a tough one to want to swallow. But at the same time, you have to be sensitive to the money that is also, that we would be taking, it's non-users. So it's a delicate balance.
I mean, are we better just locking in a smaller percentage for the next 5 years guaranteed that goes up 5, 5, 5, 5 or something instead of
I think you have
50
to-
right off the
I
bat?
think you really have, I think you could set the rates for 2 years, but then I think you still should be looking at rates every year.
No, yes.
You have to look at them
It
every
goes
year.
back to our initial, if we're not increasing the rates 2.5% every year, then we're behind.
As you
Yes.
know, Darrell, I've been out here a long time as I have, and they didn't raise rates for
I know.
5 years straight, so.
I understand.
2.5% may not be enough either.
Oh, yeah, no, understood.
So you could actually go 2.5, 2.5, which is 5 each year, right?
So it would have been a
Or-
softer blow if the initial rate was set at the first billing of 25.
Yes.
If you had increased the rates, it probably would have only been 25%.
So why doesn't that get brought before us earlier?
It was not brought before us. And I think one of the reasons,
Before us earlier, so that part of it could be absorbed in the first billing.
We should be doing that every year.
But
Yeah.
that's my
We
question.
should have
like,
been.
Whose responsibility is it to bring it to us at a particular point? Is it Prickett?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the engineer.
No, it would be.
So why aren't we bringing them forward sooner so that,
Because we haven't.
Seems like it just got missed this year.
We haven't traditionally set them then either. I mean, like, it's always been this way, kind of.
and that's right, because things didn't happen with the debt until the budget was set. Because you paid some of the debt that was always paid out of taxation, out of the water
Yeah,
and sewer retained earnings, so you
But-
didn't know that.
But no. Everybody knew it at town meeting. Everybody knew that at town meeting that the debt, the town decided that debt was going to be coming off retained earnings. And we should have figured it out then, whether it was our fault or, it doesn't matter whose fault it is, but we should have figured that out then. We should have known.
We'd just be better off if we said,
But you weren't a year prior. is
No,
what I'm
right.
saying.
right,
You couldn't have set the rate. You couldn't increase the rate after the May town meeting. Well, it's too late, because you're already reading.
Well, that's why I said.
You have to set it a year prior.
That's why, well, you could do it in March. You don't read until, when do you start reading?
Summer,
Yeah,
so bills go out and they just went out, so,
no, the first one.
yeah, that was the first one.
Second one, when do you,
Fall is the first.
fall is the first.
yeah, so you could read in, well,
You read in August and bill in September, we pay in November, something like that.
See, we always, prior administrations always had us read at the last minute, and that's one of the
Yeah,
problems.
don't read at the last minute.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
Well, we talked about
I mean,
that
that's-
last week. The readings need to happen earlier. We need more time to take a look at the reports.
Honestly, though, like, this may be stupid, but what difference does it make when we read the meters in terms of setting the rates?
None.
Right, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't,
The
yeah,
rate is what
No,
it
it
is.
doesn't.
How
Correct.
much water you use is
correct.
a totally separate thing.
Right.
He may
It's like-
decide to use
Right.
less water or.
It's like the electric bill.
Right.
Whether it's captured this month or next month, it's
Right.
gonna get
Right, yeah,
captured.
right, whether you read it on the
It's
14th or the
Yeah.
28th of the month, really,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
But
Go,
it sort of needs to happen simultaneously when you're building your expense budget and you're building your revenue budget.
I just think we need to have a habit of like saying, we're gonna set the rate in the first week of May or whatever, in time to catch that full year cycle, so we're not behind it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Mhm.
Whatever that needs to be. The rate increase should never fall in the middle of the billing.
Right, and that's what happened. We set the rate increases for 2 years, and we only really got a year and a half out of it. Because we didn't do anything for that second half.
Halfway between the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just gotta stop doing that. That's really what it comes down to.
We learn something every year.
Okay,
So
so we're going to get some figures from,
Yes, well, I say bring them in. I mean, let's bring them in and see if there's a way around not going to 50%.
Yeah.
To put the Band-Aid on something for this year, and next year we'll see what, here's the whole debt. We owe X amount of money, you owe $600,000 in debt. What's the split?
okay,
And then you're just gonna have to decrease the operating budget on the government side to take that debt in.
If you're going to add it to taxation, yeah.
Right.
That's
So there's,
just what you'd have to look at, yes.
I mean, the reality is if you look at in the summary sheet, the projected FY '25 change to second half bill only plus 100,000 to retained earnings. That's the last column of the summary.
76%.
That's what you should do,
You're talking about the water or sewer one?
both.
Both, okay.
That column is on there to demonstrate what should be happening. You know what I
That's what
mean?
those split.
That's right, but it's adding money to retained earnings, which you should be doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like that would be the ideal scenario if you weren't behind, so, or if you didn't, yeah. So that's all, I'm not saying we're doing that. Obviously, you're not doing that, but like, just for comparison's sake,
Yeah.
like that would be a good idea kind of thing. I mean, not if you have to pay the bill.
Yeah, so I mean, all these numbers are without any contribution, as it says, from the general fund. All these numbers, is to cover the whole debt, so.
Right.
And that's something that, between finance and the board of selectmen got to say, this is going to be the split, because obviously you can't absorb that kind of an increase just on those projects.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, you can't observe it multiple times in a row. So you're gonna have to come up with, it's gonna have to come up with some kind of split.
But I think that everybody that voted for debt exclusion figures it's going to come out of taxation. That's my
That's why
feeling,
you-
right?
Right. That's why you asked the whole town.
Well, except for we talked about a split about a dozen times.
Right.
So anybody who was paying attention to that would not necessarily know that. Because we talked about 60-40 and we talked about 50-50 and so that's been part of the discussion. And frankly, it's been part of the discussion for 15 years or more, like around deciding overall, I'm just thinking I mean, Daryl and I argued with prior boards about this, if we come up with a number 20 years ago and said, it's reasonable for the town residents to pay 60% of the cost of the sewer and the users to pay the 40% cost of all the capital that goes into the sewer, we wouldn't even have to have a discussion now. It would already have been decided and we could just implement it. Like, okay, this goes here, that goes there. And at some point, it feels like we're gonna have to come up with some kind of number here, because we just kind of go back and forth and back and forth.
Well, I think when whoever meets with Dave Prickett, you can put those two options. This is what it would look like if the rate.
50-50, 60-40, 70-30, we could go through the whole.
You go through the whole thing. It ought to be pretty easy, but do it with all the debt, not just.
Right, and then future things we have to take on, we already know, here's where they're gonna fall. We don't have to reinvent it every time we come up with a project. Water and sewer projects are never ending. They're just never gonna end.
Right.
When the sewer plant's done, something happens to the water,
It's going to be something.
Right.
And it's going to be, do you keep money in retained earnings, in case something happens?
Right.
But
Well, I think
you have to have money.
that should be
in
calculated
retained
into it too.
Yeah,
What are we
no,
gonna
you
need
have to have money
build
in.
retained earnings so we don't have to do this?
We can't go back to the town for $100,000, every year for $100,000 water main fix or sewer line fix or.
Well, yeah, you don't want to do that.
No.
Because there's always going to be water mains that need replacing
Right.
anyways.
Oh, yeah, they're all old.
Whether they're broken or not.
Right.
Yep.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yep, it's a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll reach out to Dave Prickett and see if we can
Please.
come up with some numbers. 64, 50, whatever. All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Did you want to take 5?
Yeah, we should. We should probably take, we're all set. We're gonna head into executive session. We're probably gonna take a quick break, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
so maybe they have
Are we sure
reorganized, I
that,
don't
is
know.
there signage downstairs? So if Chris is looking for us, he knows to find us up here?
I
Did it say it in the
believe
letter?
their agenda says second floor, doesn't it? I think it says.
Huh? What?
Yep.
Yeah, we have to go after we should have gone into executive session before the break. Are we still on?
Okay, you're leaving?
Okay.
Oh, you are? You're not staying for the executive?
I guess we're gonna take a break.
Oh, all right,
Huh?
okay. I hadn't
We
planned that.
are not going back on TV, but Marlene, should we be on TV to go into executive session?
Yes, you can be, yes.
We should wait.
Yeah.
So we should wait. Maybe we should just go on mute. an executive session, so we will be going into executive session and we will not be returning. I'll need a motion.
Make a motion, we go to executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss the discipline or dismissal of or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. The individual to be discussed in such executive session shall be notified in writing by the public body at least 48 hours prior to the proposed executive session, provided, however, that the notification may be waived upon written agreement with the parties, and we will not return.
I second that, and Jaworski, aye.
Final aye. Thank you.